Anything to add or delete from the agenda?
No, not this time.
Along with that, anybody else? Motion to approve?
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
Motion by Erica.
I'll second.
Second by Dave. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Carried. Minutes of our July 2nd meeting. Corrections, additions?
Mr. Chair.
On page 2 of 3, under highway, with that, about that sign resolution. At the end of that, it should be where it says the county reserves the right to deny any and all requests. That should be just part of that policy. So it should just say, with the
Addition.
addition of the right to deny any and all requests within the policy. It wasn't,
No.
just make sure it's in the policy, not just in the minutes, so.
Do you have anything else, Barry?
No.
Here.
I didn't.
I didn't have anything.
You didn't?
Oh, I know, it's amazing, isn't it? No.
I just noticed the one that Barry mentioned there, it wasn't real clear.
Yeah.
So, with that, no other changes. Motion to approve the minutes of July 2nd.
So moved.
Motion by Barry.
Second.
Motion by Erica. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Carried. Consent agenda, regular claims, auditor and treasurer, on down, anything that somebody wants to pull for further discussion?
The attorney, didn't we approve that already? Or is this an additional one?
This is an addition, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was an additional for the same
Same
intern.
person.
Same
person. just
Oh,
the
okay.
exception of that person.
Gotcha.
And one thing Brian presented at a courthouse, that this individual's already basically been in charge of a felony case and went and actually won it in very short order. So congratulations to her, and she's been doing a really good job, I'm understanding. And again, there's still vacancies in that office, so that we felt it was a very small price to extend that.
As well, within his budget.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
Way-
well
way
within his
under.
budget, yeah.
Any other questions? Not, entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll move to approve the consent agenda.
Motion by David,
I'll second.
second by Erica. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Carried. Open forum. Thanks, Dave. First one is Brett Healy. Just state your name and where you're from, who you represent, and going to limit this to 4 or 5 minutes each, so.
Understood. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Commissioners. My name is Brett Healy. I'm a consultant with Four Directions, and I'm here today on behalf of the White Earth Nation. I believe the Auditor Treasurer circulated the letter and resolution from Chairman Fairbanks and the Tribal Council. It lays out a request to work with Becker County for a staffed voter registration office at the tribal headquarters on the tribal on the reservation, starting in late August. The days are specified in the letter, and then an early voting location open the same hours as the courthouse here in Detroit Lakes for that early voting period. And then, of course, you've already got a site on Election Day itself. In essence, it's to make sure that tribal citizens of the White Earth Nation, who are also citizens of the United States and Minnesota and Becker County, have the same opportunity to register to vote. In fact, even with a staff voter registration office, it won't be as convenient as it is, especially for folks here in Detroit Lakes that can come to the office any business day of the week throughout the 2 years leading up to a general election cycle. So it's to make up for some of that, to have those number of days before the regular voter registration deadline ends, which is somewhere around the 10th to the 15th of October, and at the same time have the opportunity to have that early voting in person starting at the beginning of the early vote period, which of course is in late September, for the 46 days that's allowed by statute in South Dakota, in Minnesota, my apologies. At its core, it's about equal opportunity to choose those who would govern at the local level, at the state legislative level, statewide office holder level, and of course, folks that are running for federal office, including in 2024 for the House of Representatives, for the United States Senate, and for the presidency of the United States. That's the core of the request. I certainly want to leave an opportunity here for a couple minutes of questioning from the board. We certainly would hope that you'd be able to move forward and take action, given that the election's right around the corner. We're 100+ days out, but certainly open the opportunity to work together to staff it probably with tribal citizens so that there's an ability to not have folks to have to travel every day here from Detroit Lakes up to the reservation to staff the office and to work directly with the legal department. As it says in the letter, we're working directly with the legal department on behalf of the tribe and getting this agenda item, if you will. As a matter of history, if you will, a decade ago, Becker County did in fact have a staffed early voting site for quite a number of days of the early voting period. It just hasn't happened since then, in the 10 years since. And this is an opportunity to turn that around, if you will, and to make it equal for all citizens in Becker County to cast a ballot. With that, that's my presentation, and certainly open it up for questions from the commissioners, from the county administrator. If I think looks like your attorney's on the line, as well as from the auditor treasurer. Any questions, certainly can field those on behalf of the tribal council and go from there.
Well, I believe the last time it was done, Mary, that there was outside funding for that also, wasn't there? I mean, the request was, I don't know how to say this, but your request, the request that you made on behalf, or Chairman Fairbanks made, was every day that our auditor's office is open. That's not what they're just doing. They're doing their full job with that. Do you know the cost alone that would be? Is the tribe willing to pay that? And then finding the employees to do that? You have to have 2 at every site at all times. It's a huge. This is not just something that, oh yeah, let's do it. This even if we agreed to do it, I don't think we could staff it. I honestly don't think you could find and train the staff to do it in this time frame that many hours, because you would have to have multiple people.
Commissioner Nelson, we've done this in reservations across the West with shorter time frames than this. Finding staffing is going to be easily done. The tribe is prepared to work with you to do so. These cost a lot less, and they cost a lot less when one works cooperatively, because especially now that communications technologies have gotten better and better, it's having bodies that aren't having to make the trip every day. And I'm glad you mentioned cost. It's certainly, in any kind of a governmental situation, one has to consider the cost. We would maintain, however, that the first thing that should be funded in any kind of a governmental unit that is handling elections, especially handling federal, state, and local elections, is you probably ought to have an equal opportunity to cast that ballot. So the cost that you would be asking tribal citizens to incur to have the same in-person opportunity, you're asking them to pay that on the retail basis, if you will, rather than wholesale. It's much, much cheaper to have a location on the reservation in which tribal citizens who go more often to the tribal headquarters than they do to Detroit Lakes have that same opportunity that citizens that are much closer and/or right in Detroit Lakes have every day, every business day of the year, and the dates that are put in this letter are for the business days. We made sure we accounted for the federal holiday involved there, so that is the case. And in terms of those costs, that's why there's not a request then for 25 going forward to have voter registration every day that Becker County's auditor treasurer's office is open. And we understand that auditors, clerks in other states is what they're called, have other duties. Without a doubt, that comes into play. However, once that early vote period starts, those same duties are being done whether or not they have other stuff to do. I assume that the auditor treasurer, if a citizen came in to register to vote in, say, early September, you would not turn them away because you were busy doing other things. That just isn't usually how that works. Similarly, during the early vote period, you wouldn't be turning folks away that came into the office because there are other things to do. Certainly, those are things to think through. That's why working cooperatively is the way to go about it. Minimizes costs. And you mentioned, or the auditor mentioned that, and I believe you did too, as Commissioner Ellison, that there were some investments made from the outside. I'm well aware of that. We were able to get the Shakopee, Midwauken, and Sioux Tribe to help fund those satellite offices. There were other offices in other counties as well. The difference between then and now, frankly, though, is there's certainly a lot of angst across the country of having outside funding sources for core government functions. That has been, there's states that have forbidden that by law. I don't think Minnesota's one of them. But in terms of the polarity and of frankly getting along, it's no longer tenable to have outside funding sources to fund a core government function, even if it was coming from the tribe itself in terms of paying the costs. There's just too many things that can go wrong with that, both from an optics standpoint. These elections have to be run by your auditor treasurer. They cannot have that anybody else in that decision-making process. Now, that being said, in terms of helping recruit folks that can go through the training and participate as temporary workers, if you will, because it's not a full-time year-round job. It's for these specified timeframes. And then, to have the place to do it, obviously you can't put this out in the middle of a cornfield. It's going to have to be at a place that has power, has security, and the tribal headquarters, if you have not been there, it certainly has all those things. It's a very beautiful, very modern building. So it has the same technical resources as the county courthouse does, so that would help mitigate that.
I have just a couple things. One, I understand where you're coming from in that the tribal members have a distance to travel from the reservation to get to Detroit Lakes. But we also have Osage, which is the very eastern side of Becker County and north, that is farther. So how would we not accommodate to them also? One. Two, I believe we already have days set up temporary. Well, it's not as many as you're requesting, but do we have days set up in White Earth at the business office? It's just not every day. So those are my two things.
Okay, Commissioner Jepson, good questions. Let me address the first one first. The folks from Osage didn't ask me to come advocate on their behalf. That hasn't happened. And folks that are in different parts of the county, they don't have their own governmental and all that goes with that in terms of government-to-government relationships with the United States, a sibling relationship with the state of Minnesota, which obviously Becker County is a subunit thereof. So that's fundamentally different. And I would also, without knowing the census tract numbers right offhand, I suspect that there's a bit more money in some of those areas you mentioned than there is on the reservation itself. It's a function of a lot of things, historical as well as.
Have you ever been through the town of Osage?
What's that?
Have you ever been through Osage?
I have not.
Okay.
But I'm saying, that having not looked at census tract numbers to look at these are fundamental economic numbers, which obviously is mentioned in the letter, that there's not as many resources for tribal citizens as there are for other citizens in Becker County. That will be borne out by census tract data in general. I don't know about Osage itself. So, and certainly we would advocate that one be as broad of that equal access to the polling location in person, as opposed to just saying, well, you can drop something in the mail and whatnot. It's a fundamentally different enterprise to be able to ask the auditor treasurer and her staff, hey, how do I do this? It's hard to do that when you're at your kitchen table or in your vehicle and you're off trying to figure it out by yourself, especially for first-time voters and or for elderly voters. So we would articulate that that's a fundamental, differential there. And pardon me, your second question, now that I...
That we already will be there. It's more than one day.
And of course...
It's several days.
It still goes back to equal means equal. Meaning that one should not have to plan their day because they happen to live on an Indian reservation differently than citizens in Detroit Lake. That still becomes the fundamental, particularly when we start doing just the ratio of, you got your population center, no doubt, is here. I see the sign, it's roughly 10,000 folks in Detroit Lakes itself, or just shy of. It's, within a lot of it's walking distance probably, if you wanted to hoof it a bit, but certainly a short drive at best. And having that opportunity to go, I was doing some other things, I'm going to swing by the courthouse and register to vote. Or, Sam just graduated high school, going to stop and register to vote because it's convenient and going to be able to talk to a staff person and make sure you do it right. That's the fundamental difference of having that same equal opportunity, same hours, same days. And Becker County can be the leader in Minnesota for that kind of, we want to have the consent of the governed, which is a fundamental concept in our country, that's what gives a government legitimacy, is that you have gotten the consent of those you would govern, but we'd articulate that should be done on an equal basis, that it should not be differentiated by the opportunities. And Chairman, I'll stop there.
Yeah, I want to say something. When you talk equal, what you're saying is not equal, because there's all kinds of white people up there that got to drive to get to it too. So you're separating us, and we shouldn't be. We need to all get together here. No more division. If a white person can drive down or drive to Osage, then the native, we should all be. That what you're talking is not equal, because everybody else has to do it, and so.
Can I address that, Commissioner?
We have to move on.
Yeah, we got to move on.
This is not an agenda item, and we're long.
Yeah.
Mary is working on what we can do. She's contacted Secretary of State, awaiting their decision on that, so.
So, Commissioners, should I continue to communicate with Mary then?
Yes, please.
And,
yes.
and so that I can report back to the Tribal Legal Department where we're at in the process here?
Correct.
Mary, could you also, do you know approximately how much it would cost?
I have no idea. There are 79 ballots dialed. Those ballots have to be secured at the courthouse, which means we do have to have staff drive to and from this location. And I've got to check with the county attorney and secretary of state, because we've already set up a temporary polling location at the fire hall, which is why I was surprised to see this request. But, yes, I just got the request yesterday, so.
And was that at the request of the tribe? The temporary one that we have set up at the fire department was at the request of the tribe already?
Okay.
So, yeah, we're going to have to take it under advisement.
Thank you.
Commissioners, thank you for the
Thank you.
opportunity to visit with you.
Clark.
Mr. Chairman, I prefer to speak at the 10 o'clock section on Toad Mountain, but I'm prepared now, whichever you prefer.
Right here.
Yeah.
Open forum.
Okay.
Like you called me, and that's what I told you.
That's okay.
before.
That's all right. I'm Clark Lee. I live on Big Toad Lake, and I am a resident out there year-round. And before I start, in the packet, there's a couple of mistakes. I talked to Steve Skoog yesterday on page 57. that would indicate that the county already owns Toad Mountain, and Steve said that is not correct. And on page 58, it references previous owners, the Schlossmans, that they wanted to turn it into a park. That's not correct. They're still the present owners. So anyway, I'm here today to speak against the Toad Mountain Master Plan proposal process to date and ask that you reconsider your June 4th motion before you decide upon a consulting firm. As a taxpayer in Becker County and Toad Lake Township also, I, along with many of my fellow taxpayers, question things. Why would we as a county want to spend up to $75,000? I know it's only $50,000, okay, but up to $75,000 was the motion, to decide whether or not to buy a piece of property. If you were selling that piece of property, typically the seller, and the seller has very deep pockets, the seller would typically come in with a proposal as to why to buy their property. So why should we spend taxpayer dollars? Secondly, why would we as a county consider buying and developing additional public land when there's already far more than 80,000 acres of public land in Becker County? If you add in Tamarack, there's probably about 200,000 acres totally in Becker County. So why do we need more public land? Why would we as a county ignore the motion that was passed? Erica was at the meeting, and thank you, Erica, for coming, and Steve Skoog was there. Last Monday night, it was last Monday night. Last Monday night, not yesterday, but a week ago, they actually passed a motion that they are not in favor of this. And that's pretty rare for the Toad Lake Township to pass a motion about anything. Okay, but they actually passed a motion. They just feel like it's moving too fast, and they're not prepared to have this upfront money spent. Why are we considering buying land that's been on the market for 14 or 15 years and paying 2 times what it's being taxed at? We're looking at $1.7 million for some land that is taxed at market value of $800,000. And why would we ever consider buying public land knowing that it would require considerable ongoing feeding? This is exactly what the state of Minnesota did when they spent our surplus. That they spent our surplus on a lot of very good programs, but they seem to forget that it has to be care and fed next year, so that means increased taxes. If you stop and think about Toad Mountain, I've lived there a long time. I'm an old guy, and I've been on that mountain many, many times. To get to it, you're going to have somebody coming to you and saying, we need a paved road, because that basically turns into a dirt road in the spring and in the fall. You're going to have additional, who's going to pick up after these people that are doing the wilderness camping Monday morning? So I ask that you reconsider respectfully your vote, and that you not move forward with the consulting. And I'm not saying this is a good project or a bad project. It's just, it's moving too fast, and it needs more public input. And let Schlossmans come up with a proposal. They have very deep pockets, okay? I don't mean that derogatorily. They do. We all know that. So thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Doug?
How you doing today? My name's Douglas Sage. I live on Toad Lake. I have Mamby Resort. I'm here to speak against this Toad Mountain acquisition. Because I have a tendency to ramble on, I brought notes. So anyway, I stand here with strong concerns about the proposed project. I urge you to put the brakes on this thing. This initiative, until several public hearings have been, I heard about this a little over a month ago. And here we are today going to spend $60,000 on something that we don't even know what the heck we want. There is no need, you know. Hiring a firm to draw up a master plan without identifying community need in a feasibility study is way premature. I mean, we got to know what the community needs are. I mean, if there was a situation where all our parks were full and we needed more space, I could understand it, but that's not the case here. I mean, we have all kinds of parks, but how many miles of trails do we have in this county? Excuse me. And now we want to hire somebody to tell us what we can do with a piece of property that we don't even have a need for. I mean, that to me is just not right. Furthermore, I've asked Mr. Skoog many questions, but received little to no answers because there are no answers, or at least if they have answers, they're not telling us. At the Toad Lake Mountain, for instance, he said that they would not develop the shoreline, when in fact, in the packet from SRF, they suggest otherwise. I've asked, what are you going to do with it? Well, we could rent out the cabins. We could do that. We could have RV sites. We could do, all this stuff, but no solid plan. There's no need. There's no community need. There's no community request for it. So I cannot see spending this kind of money. For instance, the Deep Lake project over in Park Rapids, which I know that property very well, okay? That was sold on the same type of situation as this is. That project has now turned into a $7 to $10 million project. And the nice part about that property was there was already 3.5 miles of trail already there. So they're not having to build trails. They're putting in, they're putting in 40 RV sites. They're having rustic camping. They're having group campgrounds. They're having cabins. They're having 2 shower houses, bathroom houses, okay? Do you know what it takes to maintain those things? I mean, the staff that would have to be there, to me, hasn't even been considered. I mean, I don't understand how you go forward, without having some idea, some clue about what you're getting into. Let me think. I got to go back to my notes. I'm sorry. I am. Moreover, there is no business plan. There is no, projected how many people visit parks, how many, or any of that. So, and consider equipment costs for the place to maintain trails, to, if you're going to have groomers, to have your cross-country ski trails and all that stuff. All it takes equipment, takes people to operate the equipment. I mean, staffing, I think, would be tremendous on a place like this. So, and lastly, using taxpayer-funded grant money to purchase a property for 2 times the value, to me, that's not good stewardship of taxpayer dollars. Because even though it's sold as free land, because all these grants, it's all state and federal grants, which is funded by the taxpayers. And I just can't see that coming. So let's identify a community. In order to identify a community need, it is crucial to consider demographic trends, okay? I remember growing up, every town had a pool hall, a bowling alley, and a roller rink. They don't exist anymore. And if you look at research indicates that Gen Z spends less time outdoors in parks compared to millennials, and both generations spend significantly less time outside than baby boomers do, and that's at their age. So to get people to, it's all this digital age, it's all different interests that we have, So, and the other part is, from Toad Mountain, you go 15 miles west, you have Detroit Mountain. They offer a lot of the same stuff with what they're proposing here, or, supposedly proposing. And you go 25 miles east, and you got a 350-acre park that they're building. And that is a regional park. So why do we need a regional park 25 miles away from a regional park? I mean, none of this makes any sense. We need to identify a community need. And I strongly say, let's have some community input. Because like I said, I found out about this thing just over a month ago. So,
You about done, Doug?
yes.
I'm gonna have to.
No, I could go on, but
I know you can. No. Thank you.
Anyway. you have any questions of me, I hope you do.
Thank you.
Thanks, Doug.
appreciate
Thanks,
it.
Doug.
Thanks.
Roger.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning, Roger.
Hi, my name's Roger Meunier. I'm the business agent for Teamsters Local 320 and have the honor of representing some of your employees. I represent the courthouse group, the human services group, and the sheriff's clerical staff. We met last night. I know I let Carrie know, but the group at the end of the meeting asked if I would come today and have a conversation with you guys. So we met last night, and all three groups voted to ratify the contracts. And I did let Carrie know that I did have red lines made. I got them to her late last night. It was late last night. I apologize for that. There's one correction that has to be made on those, which I let Carrie know as well. But I'd just like to take the opportunity to thank you. This was a really hard negotiations. I know that. It kind of got contentious. That was not we didn't want that in any way, but there was a lot of moving parts with this one, with first the insurance and getting that all taken care of and kind of running into a crunch time there. And then the wage study. We've been requesting the wage study for the full 13 years I've been here. It was finally done, and I think the outcome was good. It was the implementation. Took a little while to get things straightened out. We thank you guys for all your hard work on that. I mean, it was a lot of hard work, and we understand that. The outcome at the end of our second mediation session, we think the outcome was a good outcome. We had some problems with implementation and leapfrogging. Leapfrogging is where we have senior employees who are going to be paid less than less senior employees. We had one incident where there was a lady that's been here for 20 years that was going to be paid less for 8 months, or 7 months, excuse me, than somebody that's been here for 4 years. And that would have been for the next 8 years of their career, which it's a lot of money. So there was no appetite by the board to do anything with years of service. So we negotiated a change to longevity that we hope will be voted successfully today by you guys. That would help in like 80% of the leapfrogging. So it's a great outcome. It took a long time to get there. We have some of our members here today, your employees. They're very happy with the outcome, and we wanted to come here today to express that to you and express our gratitude on working hard, having some good conversations, having some bad conversations, but getting it done. So I'd like to thank the negotiating committee from the county that was there. I'd like to thank my committee who put in hours on the sides, coming up with numbers and things as well, and appreciate the hard work and the outcome of this contract. The reason that I'm here is I'm going to try to make the stop at every group that I represent. I've been doing this for 13 years. This is my last year. I will be retiring next June. So I want to come and thank you guys, all of you guys, for the hard work, the dedication to your employees, the time we've had together. And I think we do have a good working relationship. I think we get things done, and I'd like to see that continue with my predecessor down the road. So I thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Roger.
Thanks, Roger.
Thanks, Roger.
Yep.
Kelsey.
Chairman and Board, thank you for just giving me a minute here on the open forum. You might recall last month the board approved a resolution to authorize the financing for the 2 airport hangars, the 2 6-unit T hangars that cost about $1.3 million. Our financial advisor went out and did a local placement for that debt, and we actually got pretty good responses from at least a number of banks that responded. However, get to the point, the rates weren't really what we were hoping for. Our lowest rate for a callable bond was 7.18, and a non-callable option was 6.73. Our original estimate, we were hoping between 5 to 6%, but the biggest issue with this placement was they're taxable. They're basically taxable debt, not a non-taxable debt, which is usually what governments are issuing because of the leases that we have on those hangars makes it basically a taxable issuance. So that's what bumped up the interest rate. The good news is the project still cash flows, even at the higher interest rate, based upon the revenue that those hangars are generating and the other hangars are generating. We can still make the debt service payments. However, so you might wonder, why am I here? So earlier in the project, the city and the county talked about, do we want to finance it internally? 1.3 million is a relatively small bond issuance. However, that would require each entity to tie up about $650,000, which at the time was a little more than really each entity wanted to tie up for 10 years. Because we had talked about, if you might recall, the LifeLink hangar that was built a couple of years ago. The city and county split that cost to finance that. So that was a lesser amount, about $325,000 each, to be able to build that hangar, and that's being paid back now to the city and county each month. So I think that was a good decision at the time when we were thinking interest rates were going to be between 5 and 6% to go out to the private market and finance it. But now with the rates coming back at over 7%, I know at least, on the city side, we look at what our investments are doing, and we're not getting 7% on our investments. So when you start looking at what that interest cost is over a span of 10 years and paying that to the bank, does the city and county want to reconsider and look at doing some sort of internal financing? I know that's not easy on the city side, because we got to figure out, I probably have to go back to public utilities to see if they would want to, take that debt on. Because again, you're tying it up for 10 years, but, even at a 5.5 or 5.75% rate, at least that's being paid back to ourselves. So that's kind of what I wanted to present. I know you probably don't have an answer now. The bank obviously would like to close on this relatively quickly. The funding itself, we probably have time because we don't need it for a couple of months because, the hangar itself probably won't be constructed till this fall. But the bigger issue is I kind of need to know what to tell the bank, whether or not to proceed with the financing.
A couple of questions, Kelsey. If we decide to do this, it doesn't really tie us up for 10 years. We can always go to a local bank and borrow that money locally if we fund it right away and the interest rates come down and more reasonable. So it's really not tying us up 10 years. We have the flexibility. We can transfer that to a local bank loan at any time too, couldn't we?
Commissioner Nelson, that's correct. That's why we really were looking at the callable option either way. If we had proceed with doing the local placement at a bank, the preference would be to do the callable option. So if we can refinance in a couple of years because rates go down, or maybe then the city and the county want to pay it off, that option exists. And I think your point is valid. You could do it vice versa. The only thing I want to point out is there's cost to do this placement. We had to get bond counsel involved, we had to get our financial advisors involved. So unfortunately, those are kind of sunk costs at this point. So that'd be the only concern if you want to do it in a few years from now is, if you're going to do, a commercial sale like that, you're going to have some of those costs again with financial advisors.
Kelsey and Carrie have been talking last week about this. It was kind of a shocker to us too, at a 7%. And so I don't know when do we have to make a decision, Kelsey?
Well, we'll probably talk about it at Airport Commission again tomorrow.
Okay.
Again, I'm trying to hold off the bank as long as I can.
Because I think we look at some different options and probably get our first meeting in August to our decision. Here next.
I'll do my best. Yeah.
I think we would have to ask Mary's, opinion if we have have the funds available for that time frame and go from there.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, Mary.
Well, that's a more
If Mary can get 7%, what would it be for each entity? 500?
650. Isn't it? I'm sorry.
Sorry.
You go ahead.
The amount would be $650. Interest rate, I'm trying to pitch 5.5 to public utilities, but.
Okay. If we can financially do it internally, I'm fine with that. I'm also fine with the airport committee recommending and moving forward with whatever, however you.
I would say that too.
Move forward.
Let's move forward with if we have to move forward sooner, let's move forward with the airport recommendation.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
We'll discuss it tomorrow. Tomorrow, 11:30, I think, is our airport commission
Correct. Yep.
over at City Hall.
At City Hall. Yep.
Thanks, Chelsea.
So if Carrie, if we need to move fast before a board meeting, I think the board consensus is that go ahead and we'll ratify it when you come back then?
Yeah.
However, is that okay?
That sounds good.
Okay.
Last but not least, Larry Knutson.
Chair, I'd like to yield my time to Rick Anderson, please.
Okay, Rick?
Okay, cooperate with that.
I'm a sucker for a volunteer. I'm Rick Anderson, live on Little Floyd Lake. And I've got some notes. Good morning, members of the Becker County Board of Commissioners and fellow community members. It can be tempting for those in public office to feel that building something is always better than building nothing. The allure of contributing to a legacy larger than oneself is undeniably powerful. However, the true responsibility of our public officials is to accurately assess the community's needs first, and then consult the voters about the proposed solutions. This project exemplifies putting the cart before the horse. There is no accurately identified need here, especially given that our county does not lack green spaces. I think it was stated over 80,000 acres by an earlier speaker. Furthermore, acting as if the approaching August deadline justifies skipping due diligence is irresponsible and undermines the trust and stewardship expected of our leaders. To make responsible decisions, it is essential to consider demographic trends and preferences, evaluate current utilization and satisfaction of existing facilities, and ensure the economic and environmental feasibility of new projects. By focusing on these factors, we can ensure that taxpayer dollars are invested in initiatives that truly benefit the community and reflect its actual needs and priorities. Let's prioritize thoughtful, informed decision-making over rushed, potentially wasteful projects. Together, we can ensure that our community's resources are used wisely and effectively, truly serving the needs of all of our residents. Thank you. Any questions?
I'm assuming you're referring to the Toad Mountain purchase, correct?
Yeah, if I didn't mention that, I missed that part.
Thanks, Rick.
You mean not the one in my backyard?
Thanks, Rick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, I just wanted to remind you with regards to the judge that they do
I was
report
just
at
going to
9:30.
move that up.
Okay.
Okay. Thanks, Rick.
Thanks, Rick.
You bet.
We're going to jump ahead here. We got Crystal and Judge Thelmoni. Come on up. And Drug Veterans Court.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Morning. Good morning, Becker County Board of Commissioners. I thank you for your time and attention while I provide an update on treatment courts. I know I already provided you some of the treatment court data that we have, as well as some updates, so I don't want to reiterate all of that. But for those of you that don't know me, my name is Crystal Kadri. I took over this role as the Clay Becker Drug and Veterans Treatment Court Coordinator last May. I took that over for Don Kautzman, who handled the job for a very long time. I'm a resident of Becker County, living here in Detroit Lakes. First and foremost, I want to thank you for the approval of the proclamation on May 21st for recognizing Becker County treatment courts, who have now been in existence for over 17 years. I also want to thank the county administrator and all board members who have come to attend our graduations for our participants. I think that shows, and we really appreciate your time to come and observe what it is that we do. Our program continues to save lives, reduce substance abuse, crime, and recidivism while saving the county costs. Some updates to note for some of you that saw, we've changed the structure of our courtroom. We now sit in a more U-shaped space, making it more relaxed, not making it look like a normal courtroom setting. We've updated our manual and our handbook to more properly conform to what's called the best practices for treatment courts. There was a first edition that was made back in 2013 and 15, and they've just now updated a second edition that will go through and implement those new changes. Nothing truly significant, but obviously 10 years makes a lot of research. All these standards are particularly evidence-based. As you may know, myself and Jody Kulik, who's our probation agent, as well as our VA representative, went to Anaheim, and we went to a national conference that was gave us an opportunity to review and hopefully we'll implement a few more of those changes. Also, our full team is going to free incentive and sanctions training via Zoom that's produced by the National Drug Treatment Court professionals, which are now called All Rise. So if you hear that terminology, they changed the wording. So All Rise is kind of the new National Association for Drug Court Professionals. I just want to note, yesterday I had a meeting with the county administrator in Clay County. I do have a line item that there's $4,883 in my expense or in my funds that we have now decided that will just come out of the $30,000 Clay County budget. So you can take that item out. I have gone and spoken with all the legislators in Clay County who also support treatment courts. And then a few more updates I just wanted to note that we're doing within the next year. As a statewide, we're going to be doing some more performance measures. Technology has been on our side. We've hired a research analyst that's going to give us a more concrete information so that I can come back and provide you with a little bit more detail, even more so than what
I was going to say, more detail than this. This is a very detailed report already.
It'll give us percentages, kind of what we're looking at with our recidivism rate, our graduation rates. It'll be a little bit more precise. Another part of my goal, I'm also the supervisor in the entire 7th District. So one of the judicial branch's roadmaps and goals is to have a treatment court in every county. And so my hope is that I'm going to, as well as my role here, my goal is to implement treatment courts in other counties. So knowing that Becker County has been supporting treatment courts for over 17 years, I really think that that's going to also play into my role of trying to implement that in other counties. So I come here today asking and requesting for your continued support. I believe Becker County provides $15,000 to the Becker County Veterans and Drug Court. I was advised recently, I wasn't sure whether or not DWI court, we also have a DWI court that Judge Lawson oversees, and they do not make any request from the county. They get money from the tribe as well as from the grant that they receive. So I just wanted to make note of that as well. So that is my request here today, and I thank you for your continued support. And I don't know if the judge has any further comments to make?
I don't have anything to add, other than, as she indicated, you know, the little changes that we make in the courtroom, how we formulate where we sit, et cetera. That's all based on best practices as well. So it's not just something we come up with on a whim. We learn it through others and get information and ideas on how to make it better for us. So, but the program is strong. We always appreciate your support very much, and I think it really just makes our community stronger, our community members stronger.
Right then, I think the last drug court judge, and I could see that too. It's your new setting. You sitting right down on the floor. It's more of an at ease, more comfortable setting, I think, for the participants. So, thank you.
Yes, thank you. I think it's awesome.
Well, successful programs are only done with successful people running them, and the willingness to do that. I've said this many times. We are so grateful to have Judge Tillamoni and yourself to assist with these programs, and they would not be we would not have them without the judges' involvement and acceptance. I mean, they have, it's not a requirement. This is something that will go above and beyond. So thank you again, and thanks all those that are involved in it. This is probably the best money that we spend in the system. To have such a low recidivism, to have a low rate is very, very good. So I don't understand completely the struggles of addiction. I mean, it's hard for those of us who don't have those struggles to understand it, but I've seen it, and it's real. And so anytime we can help and get people on the right track and be productive citizens is for such a modest price. It's very good. For us anyway, it's modest. So thank you.
Yeah, you guys do a great job of helping people change their lives, so that's awesome.
I think you can bank on our continued support.
Thank you very much. And I give a shout out to our whole team, Jody Kulik from probation, Brian McDonald from the county attorney's office, Becker County Human Services. We have Sarah Husleman right now, and our compliance officer, all of a sudden, Nicole Strand, and everyone who is part of the team really makes it great. So, not just us.
Yeah.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For reports and correspondence, if we could kind of keep them abbreviated.
Sorry, I can do that.
I'll remind you.
Hey, he talks more than I do.
You too.
Actually, I think I just had a couple, and that was courthouse, and I think, I'm not even sure because I don't have notes on that, but I think most of it's on agenda. So the other thing, Erica and Carrie and I and Steve and Mitch went up and met with the tribal about some NRM, and they were going to see about the current sale. Carrie, have we heard on that one? And I'd let Carrie just elaborate any more on that meeting if she would want to.
Yes. We sent staff up there, and they did meet with as we had indicated through that meeting, with tribal DNR, similar. And they did walk the tract, and they all agreed that the logging could progress. And as you know, I sent the letter asking for a response. I have not received any response. We really were still waiting to see whether or not the tribal council would agree that it could continue, because they had that recommendation from SHPO on there, to do the archaeological study. But as of date, I have not received any response.
And we had a lot of discussion about the SHPO requests on tracks, and I think we're going to rely on. I mean, I think what I came out of it, we're going to rely on the partnership with both foresters to say where there's areas that need to, and maybe in future we can avoid areas if there's. But overall, I think I had a pretty good feeling at some of the discussions. I wish that Chairman Fairbanks would have been there, would have had a little bit more, concrete. But I think we're moving in the right direction. I think that.
Yeah, I think it went well. I agree. I can go quickly. I had the Human Services with Richard. Just a quick, they asked me to update with the opioid settlement. That we received the first quarter updates, so I just wanted to quick let everybody know about them. Becker County Public Health is now officially with partnership with Steve Brumler Hope Network. Is now a naloxone access point. To date, they've given 18 naloxone kits and 5 fentanyl test strips to community members. They have 4 public health RNs that have become certified community naloxone trainers, as well as Human Services and county staff trainings have been completed. And they completed a community training, which included 12 participants in May, and then in June they had a community training through the chamber, which had 27 participants. Cornerstone received money also. They have activities in Frazee that were created to expand the GROW Frazee Vergus Coalition and partnerships to enhance substance use prevention. They're working on supporting greater access to mental health and substance use disorder services to support youth and school staff throughout the county. And then they're in the process of coordinating mental health training and programs. They had a kickoff meeting for the positive community norms messaging. Daystar, which is an outpatient, I believe it's an outpatient treatment center in Detroit Lakes here, purchased a van with that opioid money in April, and they've had significantly enhanced their ability to support their clients in their recovery journey. They now have access to exercise, volunteer opportunities, nature, medical care, and self-help resources. They are currently at full capacity with the waiting list. And then the last one is Emmaus Crossroads, which will be a new youth program at one of our churches in Detroit Lakes here that received grant funding. Their focus has been on grant verifications. They're still in the very beginnings of organizational structure. And a full-time director has been hired. And they're working with the Department of Corrections to develop a possible partnership with adolescents on probation. So that was a big chunk of our meeting. We also had some discussions, just some security updates, and then discussed some behavioral health potential new position coming just due to the increase in intensity of cases and additional paperwork. The only other thing that I wanted to note was that I did attend with Steve Skoog, the Toad Lake Township, and as I believe it was Clark that said it, or maybe it was Doug, I don't remember which one, said that the town board did pass a motion to not support the Toad Mountain. There was about 15 people in attendance, all really not in support. I'm not going to really, Clark and Doug said what many of the concerns were at the meeting, so that's all I had.
I had a couple. I'll just go quick here. Historical Society meeting, we talked about, they talked about a new fundraiser possibility where it would be a historical touring of historical homes. For example, one of the homes just across the street from the community center is an old, Ron Sprofka's old house that's our historical site. So they would talk to the people that own these homes, and they would try to do a rotating tour. It would be like a fundraiser. People would buy tickets, and the people that own the homes would set it up, and they tour their homes. And so it was kind of, there's like other organizations have done that, so it was kind of an interesting idea. That's one idea. They also would like to change their annual meeting. It hasn't been very well attended in the past, so they want to make it like a formal dinner with a speaker and maybe some other activities, possible activities like that. We also talked about them being at the fair, and they also, the executive director talked about the haunted house procedures. They're still debating on, the haunted house doesn't really fit into the mission of the museum, with the current mission they have, so they're still going to do it, I'm assuming, because the community loves it, but they're going to look at options for that too. So that's kind of basically what the Historical Society meeting is about. John and I had a RAC meeting, Recreation Advisory Committee. We talked a bunch of stuff, but one of the things that we hit on was Dutton Locks Shelter, the bid should be going out in July. So, or end of July, it's July now, I guess, the end of July, and they should be getting that going hopefully by this fall, and maybe they'll get it done soon. It's been a while, so hopefully we have it. And one interesting fact that Hank Lucky brought up is that since the Troll has been in Wanigan Park, they did a for the past 3 weeks, and this was last Tuesday, they've had 13,000 people that have gone through Wanigan Park. That was kind of mind-blowing. And then also tonight, for the Heartland Trail, there is a meeting in Glendon at the Glendon Community Center at 5:30 to discuss how the Heartland Trail will meet Becker County and Clay County, and where it's going to meet at, what are some of their proposals, what are some of their options. So anybody's interested in that. There's a few other things we talked about too, but I also had a Partnership for Health meeting. So what we did one thing, and it was a Zoom meeting, and in Clay County and in Otter Tail County and in Wilkin County, the Partnership for Health manages the food, lodging, and food, pool, and lodging. They distribute the licenses, they enforce the licenses, they manage them. And in our county, the Minnesota Department of Health does that. So they had to have a structure where somebody was an organizational structure where somebody was in charge, and they did some tweaking and some working together, so we didn't get it approved in the last meeting. So this is the structure. I don't know, you guys don't really want to look at it too much. But anyway, It was kind of interesting because there's one person that's in charge of all of the people that do all this monitoring and enforcing and licensing. And so one county is in charge of another county's employees, so to speak, and just for this aspect. So it had to be worked out, and that was kind of how they did it. And then last thing, we had a joint governance meeting last Tuesday. Talked a little bit, we had some discussions about the Bentonville, Bentonville, Arkansas? Arkansas, they went down to see that community, and they talked about how that they have the, send the same message to everybody, where we work together, we support everybody's community outside of ours, that because everything affects all the communities. It's kind of like Becker County. Everything that affects the city in Becker County affects Becker County. Everything that affects Becker County affects the cities in Becker County. And so they really stressed that they wanted to work together with that, and that was an awesome thing. And one other thing that I used to work at the high school, so this is kind of it was kind of a big deal to me. The school board passed a no cell phone policy in the schools, and they're not allowed to be used during instructional time. So that'll be different for next year. There's other things too, but I'll turn it over to John.
Well, just to add to the joint governance meeting, the concept was a regional working together, not just within the county, but regional. What one has can draw others, what other, so it really expanded people coming to that whole region, so that was interesting. Had several NACO transportation policy meetings, finalized the policy, move forward the annual meeting, which ended in Florida yesterday. I didn't go. Eric and I, we sat in on just an update on the comp plan, and I'll be moving forward and coming back for the focus groups, first to the board and then to the focus groups to look at it and input, so. And
Are we supposed to have our notes done by Friday, was that?
Last Friday. I'm just kidding.
I already handed mine in, so.
I do, I got yours.
yeah.
I had about 6 pages.
Supposed to.
Yes.
Was it last Friday?
No.
No.
And I can read your writing.
Well, it was pretty sloppy, but.
Northwest Emergency Communication Board met. One of the big things there, Motorola is updating the statewide armor system, so basically it's locked for any upgrades, adding new radios and stuff like that. So hopefully they'll have that open and upgraded here so we can continue if you could. I know transportation looking at radios and stuff like that, so we can move forward. So that's about all I had. Richard?
I had human services with Erica, and I don't have anything to add to that.
Okay, thanks. Appointments, Buffalo Red River.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion, well, wait, before I do that, Todd Andreessen, not Anderson, Andreessen is willing to serve. As you know, John Hanson, who we should probably recognize, served, I don't know how many years John served on the Buffalo Red Board, but it was well over 20. I would imagine it's close to 30 years. Should offer him a thank you, and maybe Carrie would send him a thank you letter for serving on behalf of the county, and Chairman Okerson might be willing to sign that letter. But anyway, Todd Andreessen, he farms up by Callaway, and his wife is on Michelle Andreessen, and they have family up there. Michelle is also on the Soil and Water Board. Very good family. So, Mr. Chair, with that, I'd like to make a motion to appoint Todd Andreessen.
A motion
I'll second that.
to appoint Todd Andreessen, and Richard seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Carry.
I also have an appointment, or a motion to make an appointment to the Board of Adjustments. So I did a lot of talking to people, got a bunch of no's. And I kind of came full circle, and I found a person that really is interested and really is qualified. His name is Greg Meyer, and you don't recognize the last name. He is my brother. But he's also the CFO at Dynamic Homes. He's a member, he was a longtime member of the community early, and then they moved to Florida and they came back, and he's very, very interested. He talked to Kyle about what it entails and how things are done and works, and he's very excited about it. And I think he's probably the most qualified person that I had found that I talked to do this. So with that, I would like to make a motion to appoint Greg Meyer to the Board of Adjustments.
A motion to Greg Meyer, a second?
I'll second.
Second by Barry, further discussion? I guess the main thing is you can find somebody that wants to.
Yeah. That's probably the big part.
With that, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Carried. Okay. Carrie.
I just have a few items I'd like to report out on. During our committee meeting for the courthouse, we had some brief discussion about safety committee and really what we wanted that to be. We also had that discussion in the department head meeting. And I just wanted to give you a quick update. I've had some conversations. It was suggested that I reach out to Cody Piper to see if he had some capacity to really take a look at that, and with the input from department heads and others. So he is starting that task and reviewing by statute what's required. And then also we've got some input as well from the two commissioners on the committee, as well as department heads of their ideas. And so we're looking at waiting for department heads to have volunteers from different areas and departments to sit on that committee. We already talked about the letter that was sent to White Earth. We're currently busy recruiting for the We Fest for the traffic control under the Sheriff's Department. So that'll become before you with the contract shortly. The county attorney just wanted me to quickly talk about his request through the courthouse committee. He had asked for purchasing of 2 picnic tables to put on the north side of the courthouse for breaks. Were you going to say something?
Well, I think he just requested one, but I think we said maybe a couple.
Yeah, 1 or 2,
Yeah.
depending on. And so he had offered to purchase those, but just for people to be able to be outside on breaks. And then about the time we were looking at the pricing for that, for the reuse store, they came up with at least 1, if not 2, that they would be willing to paint and sand. So that's what we're looking at. Also exploring pricing for cement pad or patio block or something like that to put underneath of there, so it doesn't have to be continuously moved for mowing.
I give a kind of a shout out to Carrie. She's really going with the reuse and purpose different events. She was suggested maybe to look at pavers, used pavers that come in and just use those under the.
They did have quite a few out there.
Okay. So and also she's some of in her office she is practicing what she preaches, because she's using reused some furniture in there, and I think Richard and I both commented on the one that's in a temporary spot in the
You
front
don't
office. I didn't like it very much, but each their own.
I'm just wondering if the paint is reused.
Yeah.
We had the paint on hand,
Okay.
so I'm trying to keep the cost low.
Yeah. So thank you for that. And
I will be out of the office on Thursday and Friday. I'll be attending a MACA Technical Day in Duluth with the other county administrators. I had conversations yesterday with our new assessor, Lee, and our interim, if you will, Nancy, just to really talk about the transition of what that's going to look like. We're anticipating that Nancy's time here with our county will be probably complete by the end of the week. So she's been around for a few days, and they have been diligently working to get him up to speed. She certainly would be available if there's a need, down the road for any time, or if he had questions. So that has worked well, and they've also had some discussions about staff needs and training, and so I think we are headed in a good direction in that department. We also have applicants for my position that I vacated, the Human Resource Director position. And so Commissioner Meyer has agreed to be on the interview panel along with myself. And I've also reached out to the Clay County Human Resource Director, Assistant County Administrator. He has also agreed to be a part of that panel. We're looking at doing interviews for that position the last week of July. So hoping that we'll have somebody ready to go by beginning of September, and I can't wait. That's all I have for my report. I believe Cecilia is here.
Yes, come on up.
One thing, Carrie,
Yes.
feel free to share those comments that I made on the report with other commissioners. So, I mean, there were some things that were not,
On the comp plan.
yeah, on the
Okay.
comp plan. Maybe that they, and you could just reference, give them all of them, and there's some typos I found into some, but there's a couple things that are future policy that, you know, do we want to word it like this? So,
Okay.
I feel free to share it with the other commissioners.
Okay. I'll probably just scan them in, and they can just look at them for yourself.
Sounds good. They're not written very well, but.
Well, I could read them.
Good morning,
Morning, Sarah.
Commissioners. Good morning.
Morning.
Thank you for your continued support with Extension. My name is Cecilia Amadou. I serve as a Regional Director for University of Minnesota Extension. And today I come before you to present our 2025 to 2027 Memorandum of Agreement contract. This is a continual contract that we have for 3 years, and there has been some minor changes to that contract. So I'll spend about 10 minutes just going over. I think many of you have heard what the changes are, but I think there's two that haven't heard, so I'll just give a quick overview about that, and then we'll move on from that. So the Association for Minnesota Counties came together with University of Minnesota internal staff, which is Director of Operations, Chief Financial Officer, and of course our Dean, sat down, and the AMC had a subcommittee to come together to negotiate on behalf of the counties. So the contract that we'll be talking about is universal language within the contract, with counties having the option to buy into how much of that service they would like to purchase. So all 87 counties are working through the same contract. Like I said, AMC has negotiated that language. Our Office of General Counsel has reviewed those languages, and then that's what we're putting in front of you. So under the contract, the University of Minnesota will provide services in exchange for counties paying for the cost for extension employees. A little bit of history about the contract. This has been in place since 2004. It's a uniform contract, like I said, to provide consistency across the state. And the contract is for 3 years with amendments, options available after the first year. Currently, we have about 141 FTE across the state that fall within that contract. Previous to that, in 2018, we had 121 FTE. So there's been an increase in FTE amounts that counties are requesting for. And we're grateful for the continued investment. We do have counties making about $19 million of their investment within the university finances. We also receive some funds from the federal in programs such as SNAP Ed, providing services for after school and before school programming, and also just providing some help in communities that may have a need in learning how to stretch their dollars a little bit. Currently, we don't have anybody in Becker County serving in that role, but that's something that we can look at. Counties do not pay anything for that role. It's just a matter of providing the space for that person to sit so that they can do work in communities. And then we also obviously have some funding from the state, and then we also receive some gifts and grants that make up our overall budget. So within this contract, the university is agreeing to hire, supervise, manage, and train staff. So the contract pricing is including staff development, paying for staff salary, benefits, and all that falls under that contract. With this contract, counties are gaining access to university research resources. One example in your county is our economics department is working with the business here in Becker County to look at different ways that a community can thrive in look at the economic opportunities that are available here. We are also taking oversight for risk management. When it comes to our youth development program, we do have volunteers that make the program successful, and we take the risk management falls under us. Before somebody can identify themselves as a youth volunteer, youth development volunteer, or 4-H volunteer, they have to go through an extensive volunteer screening process before they identify as a volunteer because they are working with youth. And under that also, the university's contract will also pay for the payroll, accounting services, including reimbursement. So a lot of times we have staff that travel for professional development, so that contract also covers reimbursement and per diems under for staffing. And in return, counties are agreeing in the contract to provide office space and also county hired or university hired staff that will support that individual. In this county, we have Linda, who's been in the position for quite a long time and has done a good job supporting the educators in that role. Also equipment, computer, softwares, telephone, and office space is all under what the county is agreeing to provide as part of the contract. Within the contract, in the past it wasn't very clear, but we've clarified the roles of the county extension committee members who the educators and myself meet with quarterly to share updates about what's happening with the work and also give them the ability to provide input on where the work should go. So what's new in the contract? Currently, we do have one FTE with one county hired admin support staff, and then a summer seasonal staff that support staff during the fair time, and especially in the summertime when they're busy. So that 80,000 for one FTE is going to 100,000 for one FTE. And then the intern amount is also going up to $22.56 per hour. And these are all subject to 3% increase after the first year. I want to be clear in saying that the amount that I just stated is not salary, but a contract price. That includes salary, benefit, reimbursement, and just the overall management of that position. So counties are buying into a service to provide youth development or whatever service they choose under that contract. In Becker County, it's just the one FTE youth development staff and then the support staff and then a summer intern or coordinator and then the summer support to help with Linda's job in the summertime. So yeah, I just wanted to clarify that because that can get a little confusing. And you may be wondering why the price is increasing. One is just a fee of service, and also with the AMC and some commissioners just really stating that staff were not getting adequate pay. So we've looked at that and done a wage study and trying to accommodate for that. Some staff are going to get an increase. We don't know what that increase will look like because we have to look at their skill mastery that they bring to the position, how long they've been in the position. The union person just talked about that, really looking at retention with longevity in mind. As the longer somebody's been with us, obviously, the more money they will make in their positions. That doesn't mean that somebody that's been here shorter time won't get an increase. That's an HR thing that will be handled internally as we are taking leadership and supervision of those positions. And we also know that retention is overall better than trying to recruit staff over and over again because of low pay. So with that extension, we are committed to sharing impact and making improvement in your communities. We know that people that have encounter any of our program, whether it's youth development in the 4-H aspect or a volunteer aspect, usually stay with us for a lifetime. Some of our committee members have been with us over 20 years. And it just speaks to our commitment that we have in communities and the library that people know they can trust the resources that we put out into communities. And we know in Becker County, there's a need for people sitting on committees and serving in that role. And so we're really producing future leaders in these positions that will someday be sitting in the positions that you are in, and we can guarantee that. So with that, I am proposing that the board make a resolution to pass the contract as you're seeing in front of you with one FTE, and the CEC met last month and recommended that we bring that summer coordinator intern position back. So that's also updated in the contract. And then we're still going to keep the summer support that supports Linda in that position. So.
I just want to make note a little bit about the conversation that we had at the extension meeting. Was we had a discussion amongst the committee about that we previously had a 1.75 educator, and we are now down to 1. So we had a conversation with Elliot of, what needs does he see? We talked about, do we need a 1.75? He said that really the concern is oftentimes in the summer recruiting kids for 4-H so that we can continue to grow our program, because we are still building it back up after COVID. So that was where the committee thought having that intern for $9,000 for the summer would be helpful, as long as we kept the office support for Linda. One thing that was also mentioned at the committee meeting is Linda has been here for 47 years and probably will be retiring soon.
Someday.
So we just want to make sure that we don't have any, we continue to keep growing that 4-H program and the extension with the Master Gardener program. So that was the consensus of the committee, that they would like the intern as long as the county was willing to keep the summer office support person.
And then one thing just to add to that, I was at that extension meeting. The numbers for 4-H have steadily increased since 2020, so there is a need for Elliot to have help, the educator to have help in the summer. Absolutely, yeah.
Mr. Chair, I think the increase is significant, and I think we knew that when we last tried to hire. We had difficulty finding applicants that were willing to serve for the price that we were offering, that the university was offering. If you looked at what the county would offer, and I think we looked at that quite internally, we looked at what those same requirements for that person, if that was a county employee, would be significantly more. So I think the university is underpaying. So I don't mind having the increase as long as that money's coming back to the employees. I don't want to fluff up the university extension office funds. This money needs to come back to the employees in Becker County. I'm not going to, next year if I find out that you just raise the full-time employees' salary 3%, and we just got a 20-some% increase. I don't think that's going to sell very well here. We had difficulty recruiting. I think that's the need for the increase in this request today, and I support that. But if it doesn't go back to the employees, and we're just putting money in the overall budget, I'm not gonna be very pleased, and we'll have another conversation about this. So send that back to the leaders at the state, that this money, I think your counties can support it if it comes back to support our local educators, because they are being underpaid.
Yep.
That's my cautionary tale on where this, if you say that that's going to be, that you don't know what those increases are going to be, if they're 2-3% and our employees are, and then we're going to look at this dollar amount and say, now you're asking too much then. That's my opinion. So
Yeah.
take that message back.
Yeah, I don't have any feedback on that one because I don't know what it will be. But I mean, we're always open for discussion. afterwards.
Well, I think the AMC commissioners also see the need for improving those wages, and
Yes.
if these don't go to that, I think we'll have a big discussion at AMC too.
With that, wishes of the board. A motion to approve the new contract and budget as presented.
I will so move.
I will second.
Motion by Barry, second by Erica. Any more discussion? And I just have a comment too. I guess I've been very supportive of 4-H program for years because I know the benefits it can do with the younger kids. I'd rather spend more money up front when they're younger than trying to bail them out of our jail out here later. So, but we have to see results too, like Commissioner Nelson said, so.
Yeah, I agree with Barry. We did have a lot of trouble finding somebody, and it didn't pay enough. It doesn't pay enough. And so I'm in agreement with him on that, that it needs to go there.
Anything else? If not, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Here, thank you.
The next item is our budget proposal in front of you
Oh, yeah.
that goes along with the contract.
With our motion,
I thought it was all.
I covered all of that, covered the budget too.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's good.
Yeah, so you're good.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay,
Back to me.
back to you.
All right. Commissioners, in your packets, you have a proposed contract from Todd Hill, the lobbyist that we had on board before, and a couple of comments with regards to this. He broke it apart per my request, and certainly you can indicate which of those you would like to move forward with. We did have a verbal agreement, I guess, with Clearwater and with Monoman County as far as committing some of the cost to this. But at the time that they were talking about that, we didn't have these figures. So I can certainly proceed. One of the suggestions that came out of, I believe it was either finance or courthouse, I don't recall which one, was, perhaps Becker County would like to authorize half of the $12,000 a month and then ask the other two counties to split the other half.
And how many months are we looking at?
I asked him as far as, gearing up towards for the next session. He was indicating that this work would probably start in August and then run into May. I know there had been discussion at our committee meeting as well, with the need going forward, potentially with media relations with regards to these topics as well. I don't know that if we're there yet, but certainly if there's a need for that, that's an additional cost, as well as, working with some of those regulatory agencies as well. If you look at the proposal, he's reaching out to other agencies as well that are probably more well-versed in some of those areas. So this was I'll call it an a la carte contract, if you will.
I think the discussion in finance was if the other two counties would
Pay the other half.
pick up the other half, would probably go forward, but should we get their commitment before we move forward with this?
Correct.
So,
Well, I
that's
want to
kinda-
say again, though, John, we should be reaching out to all counties. This is a lot of money.
Yeah.
Almost every county in Minnesota is affected by reservations. And we should reach out to all the counties in the state and try and get all on one page and share the cost of this. It's very expensive, and they should be aware of what we're going through. That's the other thing. And so I don't know how we do this. I've said it several times, and I don't know how to go forward with it, but we do. It's very expensive, and it's going to affect all of us, and we should reach out to all those counties. And
I think it was discussed out at AMC because AMC Chairman Neil Gloswick from Cass County, which deals with the same issues. We had good discussion down there on how it can affect. So probably behind the scenes, there's some of that stuff taking place.
It's not there yet.
It's not there.
Yeah.
Because it's,
Well, I I don't, I mean, I think we add more counties. You know, I look at the first part, and I think we should move forward, but, I mean, I think there's more, like you see, there's 2 additionals that are almost doubling the price. So, I mean, I think we agree to the first part, and then we try to add more counties and get them to contribute, then we can get just more of the things that are, you know, like the media relations and the federal lobbying too. So I think if we commit to, you know, through August through May, half of that 12, I don't think it's ever going to go down. I mean, it's not going to, we're not going to get cheaper even if we get other counties, because it's going to, we should just get more coverage. I mean, you look at what was written in that letter, what the tribes are spending on lobbyists. I mean, it's way more. And I think without doing anything, we're just falling at the mercy of a one-sided discussion. We have to be at the table to put our concerns out there.
No, I agree, we do have to do it, but
I'd like to see what the other counties' intentions are.
Yeah.
Before we would vote on anything. Okay?
Can find that out.
Yeah, I can certainly reach out to them and then bring it back if you'd like me to.
Or
Yeah.
August
Okay.
meeting.
Yeah.
I would like us just to maybe reach a consensus here to move forward with, I think we should commit up to half of the initial 12 for those months, and ask that if the other counties are, you know, so they know that we're committed. It's not like, well,
Yeah,
Becker's not.
I'm fine with that.
We're leading the charge, but we need their buy-in also.
I agree with that. Yeah.
So authorize up to the 6,000 with the.
Well, I think just say that we have
Committed.
to that, and that we'll form this partnership with them if they're
willing to pick up the other half.
and then we can expand it to other.
Other counties.
I would imagine the consultant would probably have those. Might be working on that already,
Yeah.
and maybe we
I
can
think that's
ask him
accurate.
to ask that company to look into those other counties that have direct tribal lands within their boundaries.
Okay.
All right.
Yep.
Thanks.
Mr. Chair, in the board, as it's already been indicated, originally in the packet, I had sent out the final agreements for Teamsters, and as you learned, we got the red line contracts late last night, which I pushed out via email. I thought it would be helpful just for me just to highlight a few things, and then we can have some discussion. So specifically in these contracts, they're very similar. With the implementation of the wage study in April, similar to other contracts that we have settled. Probably the main difference in the Teamsters contract, and again, as it was alluded to earlier, is that there was concern within these groups of leapfrogging and the effect that that had on some of the senior employees. So what was tentatively agreed on in our mediation was a modification to our longevity scale, specifically for the Teamsters, and increasing at that, I believe it was 16-year mark, 2% increase to the top, I guess. So there were several employees that would be affected by that, and that was the solution that was brought forward through our negotiations. And I know we've had discussion about this and where we are with the contracts. So is there questions, discussion? And I do have some costs associated with that. If you're interested in that, I did share that with finance, specifically for Teamsters. And I do also want to clarify, I know when we've had conversations about the modification to the longevity scales as well, I believe that our negotiation team really thought that it was implementation of April of the scale as well as the longevity scale at the same time. However, when you look at the contract language, and I've had conversations with Roger as well, really what they asked was the longevity modification retroactive back to January. So specifically to the Teamsters, the additional cost to the county, if you were looking at retroing that modification to the longevity scale back to January, is $61,585. That's the recent estimate that I got from the Auditor Treasurer's Office as of yesterday.
Any other questions? I guess, motion would be to adopt or deny the TA.
Do you have that? Which agreement is that now? Because you said there was a new one. Is that what, did you send that out last?
Sent out an email last night.
Yeah, it was on email. So you had all of the tentative agreements that were reached, because that's all I had at the time for the
Yeah.
packet. And then Roger had via email, and I pushed that out to,
Is it this one?
It's it's the first, well.
there was 3 contracts.
There's 3 of them,
Yeah, 3 Teamsters contracts. And I just highlighted basically the difference between that and some of our other contracts.
I would say that we as a negotiating team made a tentative agreement. Even though the date wasn't clear, we still made the tentative agreement. So I am going to support our tentative agreement as a member of the negotiating team.
I also just want to note, when this was presented before, I was not of the understanding that this was a tentative agreement made. I do believe, because our negotiating team has worked hard, that we should back them up and approve the tentative agreement. And thank you to the negotiating team and to the employees.
There's probably one other item I just wanted to highlight. In our past negotiations, the Teamsters group had not opted in to our catastrophic leave bank. I just wanted to make a note that during these negotiation sessions, they were in agreement to that. There was some modification to the language that looks a little bit different than other contracts, but at the end of the day, they did opt in to that, and they did agree to that as well.
The other change that I would like just to clarify, the insurance flat rate of $200, that is paid towards only reimbursement of county
Health insurance.
County, I mean,
Yes,
just so
if
we're
they-
clear on that. I mean, because it doesn't read real well in here.
So it's not, they don't get $200 to go towards it. They
If they-
only get $200
$200.
If they were
if they
to,
take it out.
if they were to take out, whether it would be a single policy or 1+1
A
or
reduction
family.
of the county offer.
Correct, the full price, yes.
I mean, I think that should be just clarified in there.
In the
because
language.
it does not read like that.
Roger,
Yeah, I can make that clarification. Just towards county operating insurance.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, again, I think, I say I support our negotiating team. I think, so I will, I mean, this was a long process, and it was probably a very difficult one, and to get through this. So I'll just leave it at that. I will support the team if they're recommending this is what we should do. And
Well, just, after our last discussion about it, I had different thoughts, because 2 of the board members are pretty adamant that enough is enough, but I know we didn't negotiate in good faith, and it's a tough decision, so we moved forward on things and try to get things settled, so.
I should also say that this is also, which I'm sure you've read, but this is a 3-year contract. So we've been on 1-year contract, which has been fairly tedious and a long time spent on these
time.
I
negotiations.
want to
So-
thank both sides for the 3 year. It's nice to get that.
Along with that, do I have a motion?
can we make a motion to approve all 3 amendments?
You were supportive, but you didn't make a motion.
No, but can we make a motion to approve all 3 at once, or do we got to do them each individually?
I would think you'd do them individually.
I think you would as well.
Because you probably want to state that one correction in
Yeah.
all of them, or that one
With the clarification on the
clarification.
insurance, yes.
Okay, a motion to approve which one?
I'll make a motion to approve the contract with Local 320 for the Human Services contract, with the amendment that the insurance will be given. Clarification that the insurance will be only used towards county insurance, the money for part-time employees.
For health insurance.
Health insurance, correct.
Second?
I'll second.
Motion by Dave, second by Erica. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Carried.
Thank you.
Next one.
Yep.
Mr. Chair, you allowed a participant to speak. I would like to make a comment.
Go ahead, Mr. Knutson.
You should be embarrassed and ashamed of yourself, all of you, for the way you laid down to the union, and none of you deserve re-election.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion to approve Local 320 courthouse contract with the same modifications as the human services contract.
I'll second.
Motion by Dave, second by Erica. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I'm confused about something here.
Point of order.
Are we on a
Point of
different
order.
page,
It's different.
John, than where we were before?
No, it's
Something changed?
it's same as a tech, or TA agreement we discussed at our last.
At our closed session?
Yeah.
Okay. Aye.
Carried.
I'll make another motion to approve the Local 320 contract with the sheriff's clerical employees with the same clarification of the part-time employee insurance.
I'll second.
Second by Erica. Further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
The next contract that was in your packet, and I'll just, the caveat to this is that I was locked out of the edits from their side, so I did the best I could between the two of us late yesterday. So this is for the LELS deputies group. And again, very similar language to many of our other contracts. The one difference I would point out is that they were very interested in they wanting to maintain their position in the comparables that we've used through DDA. So I had some conversation with Tessa and how to go about doing that. Currently, they were, if you take 16 comparables and how they came out in the comparables, they were in position, we'll say 7. They wanted to be in position 5, but with all the COLA increases and the implementation of the salary structure, we were feeling that we were fairly close on target. I did have some conversations with Keith and just a preliminary check through Tessa, as well as Keith was doing his own checking. They were less than a percentage point off for being in the 5th position. So what that looks like is in August, she'll run the final numbers, and the tentative agreement indicates that we will potentially do a market adjustment specifically for the deputies to maintain them in the 5th position. And the other thing I would say about that is that I think the implementation of this salary structure for the deputies specifically, and I've noted this before, is that we are close to full staff, or very close to full staff, and I think that this has assisted in that process.
Motion to approve the contract with LES deputies.
I'll move to do that.
I'll second.
Motion by Dave, second by Erica. Other discussion?
Also to note, this is a 3-year contract. Just want to make that clear. All of these are 3-year contracts.
Anything else? Not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Carried. Opposed?
And that is all that I have.
That's all you have. I wonder, we're
Do you want to take a break?
kind of behind schedule here.
Let's go through Mary's stuff first, I
Let's
think.
do Mary's and then we can do the WeFest contract too. That won't take very long.
Because then I think we just have
Then we just have,
the WeFest and the,
yeah. Then-
Mary, let's take you.
Cold.
Good morning. I have 2 items on the agenda. There are no licenses for this meeting. Resolution 724-2B is regarding the class action lawsuit settlement agreement. Counties had 2 options, If they opt in, they retain risk of liability for all claims related to properties forfeited before January 1, 2024. After courthouse discussion and finance, it was a consensus that we will be participating in the settlement agreement, which is what this resolution represents.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 2B.
I will second.
Motion by Barry, second by Dave.
Just for discussion, this will allow us to draw from the state fund. If we do not do this, we will not be able to draw from the state funding of the class action, so if we don't do this, we're on our own. We'd be having to pay our own money. If we join this, the state has a fund that will will offset those costs. If there are, and there might be a couple in Becker County relating to the lawsuit in Hennepin, or Ramsey, was it?
No, Hennepin.
Anything else?
No.
Not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Carried.
My second request is Resolution 724 2C, a personnel request, requesting to combine 2 part-time positions into 1 full-time position. Basically, we've had an unexpected absence, and we are behind in our current work. We were hoping to finish the audit before the election. At this point, that's going to be pushed out to September due to some of these specialty items like fixed assets, debiting department credit card purchases. We're a couple months behind, and we are trying to implement going into electronic purchase orders, which is going to require new staff training for everyone other than Human Services, which is currently using that same system.
Courthouse Committee, weigh in on this?
We were as long as the budget from Human Service position is transferring, and some of those duties have transferred over too. And I think we wanted to touch base, we wanted to make sure Human Service Committee was on that same page, so.
Yes.
I don't think Human Service Committee wasn't involved in any conversation.
I think there was conversations had probably directly with Denise.
Oh, okay.
It's a vacant position that's funded through Human Services that has not been filled. But as you know, with our structure, all of these positions are falling under the county, the auditor treasurer's position. And some of those duties are being taken on within Mary's department, such as the transits. And there's several things that she and I have talked about that are really behind, and they're really struggling in their workload. So it seems more fitting to reassign and realign some of these duties, plus the additional duties that they're going to have with having to do sales with the tax forfeited. There's just a lot of things coming. So I'm certainly supportive of.
And Denise was?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep, okay.
I just want to make one clarification. On the resolution, it says 1C, and in the request and in our packet, it says 2C.
Oops, that's my error. It
should
be 2C.
2C, okay.
2C.
Yep.
All right.
I think that's something to note also, that the state is now requiring us to have annual tax forfeit land sales.
Yearly.
Instead of at our leisure, anything.
Well, every other year, yeah.
Yeah, well, that's what we used to, until recently. We haven't had a sale now, but that's a requirement of the state to prepare any of those sales. We have less options to do with them, to do with those properties that come before us. We don't have the option of just allowing another government agency to purchase them, so we're being more restrictive with this lawsuit that came forward, so.
With that, motion for 2C.
I'll make a motion to approve 2C.
Motion by Dave.
Second.
Second. Barry. Further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Let's take Sheriff quick here before we.
Thank you.
Thanks, Barry.
Take a quick break. We're running a little late.
Good morning. Mr. Chair, members of the board, I have 2 items. First one is the 2024 WeFest agreement. We have increased that contract over $23,000 from last year. It is it's a contract that covers, of course, all of our needs for WeFest, including wages. So there was a significant increase. And we have offered to defer half of the increase until 2025.
So it's just payable in 25.
Half.
Correct.
Correct.
The half is just payable in 25.
Yes.
Along with that, kind of coincides with the conditional use of Kyle. Yeah,
Yeah.
might as well, it's the same.
Same thing, yeah. Got it.
So basically, we approve contract the sheriff, highway have their contract in.
Highway, I talked to Supa this morning. I tried to phone Jonah, but highway is done, sheriff is done, Detroit Lakes Fire is done. Supa said there's some union negotiations going on with the state patrol, so that contract there's a little hang-up, but they're also working with MnDOT. But fire, highway, sheriff is done. Last year, we just stipulated that the conditional use is contingent upon all those contracts being approved prior to the event. And then along with that, there's no major changes from last year to this year. You know, there's a couple vendors that may change from garbage or sewer or water. Camping spots are actually down significantly from last year, from like 8,270 to 6,355 or something. And they were anticipating a lower attendance than last year. So other than that, the only comment I got from the safety committee was from the Minnesota Department of Health. And they just asked if we wanted to require water testing. Normally, the festival does comply with them and test for chlorine residual out there in those wells. So I would just say that we include that as well.
Do we have the entrance so that we don't have that roadblock like we did last year? I mean, have they?
We have been
fixed
working
that
on redesigning, everything to avoid what happened last year.
Parking and blowouts.
Parking and blowouts. There's an additional exit on 130th.
Yeah.
And, I think last year was the perfect storm because of who the entertainer was, and obviously the heat didn't help with.
And the first night.
And it was, first night.
So with the numbers down, I don't foresee the congestion we had last year, which hopefully we don't see again. But so we need a motion to approve sheriff's contract?
That's correct.
So moved.
I'll second.
Motion by Barry, second by Dave. Further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Carried. And then we'll take,
Should we do you want to do it in order with it, approve the seal coating first and then
yeah,
things right there?
Yes, thank you. We would like to seal coat the jail parking lot this year. It has not been done since we opened, and it is in our budget. The cost through the county highway would be $5,700 approximately, and then additional cost would be to restripe. I don't have those costs in front of me. It would be covered in the budget.
Motion to approve the seal coating and striping.
I'll second.
motion by Barry, second by Dave. More discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Carried. Okay, now, conditional use permit.
What do you want, a motion to approve pending
Yes, I
state
could
patrol?
just recommend it. I think we just list them all. Yours is signed, but it's still covered then, so they can't back out of it for any odd reason. So if you could just approve the annual conditional use permit with the stipulation of approval of contracts from Highway, State Patrol, DOT, Sheriff, and the Detroit Lakes Fire Department, along with that water testing in accordance with the state.
So moved.
I'll second.
Motion by Barry, second by Dave. Further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I can follow up, Peggy, if you need any help with that.
We'll take,
You didn't get all that? Come on.
we'll take a short break and then come back with final item, land use.
I didn't move this.
Oh, thank you. You just did that right now? Nice.
Yeah.
All right.
Clark?
She's going to bring you up.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bring the memo in.
Okay, Steve.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and board members, Carrie and Peggy. Today we're going to talk about the Toad Mountain project. This started when Trust for Public Lands contacted Becker County to see if we'd be interested in developing or turning that into public ownership and eventually turning it into a park. And today with us, I got Mitch Lundeen, our Nick Banks from Trust for Public Land, and David Schlossman. He represents the seller. And what we'll do is we'll go through how we got to where we're at now, and then where we would like to go into the future, or what would be the next steps, would be more appropriate. And so with that, we'll just go through. We did present a slide. Showed.
Yeah.
Is this? I think most of the board members have been out there, along with the Recreational Advisory Committee, the county administrator. I believe she's been out there.
I haven't yet.
You haven't? Okay.
But it's on my radar.
Okay. Toad Mountain is the highest elevation point in Becker County. It's located just to the west of Big Toad Lake. There is also some lake shore and a couple cabins on the lake that's included in these two properties that we're talking about. Next slide. So this is an aerial photo of the property. As you can see, there's a fair amount of lake shore. You can approach it from township roads on either side of the property. It's located, as it says here, approximately 20 miles from Detroit Lake, 65 miles from the FM area, and 13 miles from Osage. There's not a lot of public parks in the area. There's a few of them, but not very many. So the purpose of moving forward today is to take into consideration and a planning process to determine the need for a public park, and how it'd be developed and get public input, and then move forward with how we would fund it. And so, go ahead.
What is the total acreage?
There's,
260?
yeah,
253.
253 acres. There's approximately 400 feet of lakeshore. If you go from edge to edge, there's two cabins on the property. There's been a number of trails developed on there by the current owners. They used it for horseback riding. Is that correct? I guess with that, David, would you like to talk a little bit about, or Nick?
Sure.
This is David Schlossman, your representative for the seller. You know, it seems like just such a fun opportunity for a county, so thanks for considering this. Properties like this are kind of what places makes communities unique from other communities, fun places to live. So when people are thinking about where do I live with my family? What do I do with my guests when they're visiting me? Where should I put my business? You think about what things are available for you, recreationally around. The world is flat now, so people are choosing sometimes where they live before, where they work, because, working online and remote. So it's a unique opportunity for community to take control of an asset and just bring it back into public domain. Alternatives to this, it hasn't been for sale since 1996, so these opportunities don't come very often. And it's just an opportunity to, have another fun asset, to offer your community members and their guests. And so, thank you, commissioners, for considering this.
Yeah, just the background slide we had here too, and going back to, we staff visited the site back in September 5th, 2023, and also met with the current owners. TPL then presented as kind of a, if the county were to seek out acquisition of this property, it'd be an obvious that we'd go for grants, and there's multiple state and federal grants that we would have to seek out to acquire this. I don't know if the other slides here, I'll move right into, Nick, if you want to talk, kind of how this looks. It needs a flow chart, because it's a lot of moving parts.
It is a little complicated. Thanks, Mitch. Again, my name is Nick Banks. I'm a project manager with the Trust for Public Land, working with Steve and Mitch and David and his mother on this acquisition. And it is a very unique opportunity. David approached us just shortly before we came and talked with the county about this. And looking at this, we've done several types of these acquisitions before that have been funded by grant funding. And so this flow chart is kind of, there's two buckets that you're seeing here. There's kind of the acquisition portion, which really is the big role that TPL plays, is we help to acquire the property in the interim while we help the county assemble the funding then to purchase the property from us. So we essentially hold on to the property until we get it into permanent public ownership via Becker County. So that, what you see, I guess, to the left here is kind of the grant application process to get the grant funding to purchase the property. And it really starts with what's before you for this resolution of deciding to move forward with SRF as the consultant to write the master park plan. It starts with, there's 3 different grant sources that will be used to acquire this property. 2 of them are state and 1 is a federal source. One of the state grants has a particularly complex process to a certain degree, where you need to get, this is with the Greater Minnesota Regional Parks and Trails Commission grant. You need to get a regional designation and have a master plan in place before you can even apply for the grant source. And the first step is getting that regional designation. Proposals were put out to help with this master plan process and this regional designation process. Steve and Mitch and was the Recreational Advisory Committee vetted these proposals pretty extensively, had a real nice ranking matrix. I think it was 7 proposals that came in, and elected after all consideration and criteria looking at SRF having the strongest proposal. What they'll do, or what they propose to do, is attain that regional designation. You need to get a high ranking before proceeding on to the application. So they're proposing to submit that regional designation application here by the end of this summer to get evaluated, secure that high ranking by this winter, and then continue on to finish the master park plan in spring of 2025. Part of that master park plan process is going to be a lot of public engagement. I think they had at least 5 different instances of public engagement components that they built in as tasks as part of the proposal. 3 of them are stakeholder meetings with the potential for more, so they're going to be looking for a lot of input from stakeholders, not only directly adjacent to the Toad Mountain property, but also this larger regional perspective, which is really what this Greater Minnesota Parks and Trails Commission grant is about, is setting the context and proving that this is kind of a regional asset, and regional can go everywhere from countywide to several countywide, extending to the Fargo-Moorhead area. So broadening out that perspective and showing how it fits in that regional perspective. One of the nice things they're going to have from this master plan process is this matrix of uses and how Toad Mountain and its uses could be complementary to what's going on in the county, but then also where there's recreational gaps and needs in the county, and how Toad Mountain and potential development of that property could fit into that. So taking a step back, you've got those grant sources that the county TPL would work with the county to apply for by the end of next July. And then the county would get notification on all 3 of those grants at the latest by November of 2025, whether or not they've received the funding for this acquisition. Concurrently going on is the acquisition of the property itself, separate from the funding. TPL has a purchase contract in place with the seller to acquire the property by December of 2025. And then we would hold it for about a 10-month period as the county is getting the funding lined up together to purchase from us, and then convey the property to the county in October 2026. So we're looking essentially kind of at almost a 2-year window here to be working on this project. The next slide, if you don't mind going to that, Peggy, shows just a little more information about these different grant sources here. Just to give you kind of, the grants are going to come with parameters in terms of what the funding can be used for. So this is also going to feed into the master plan process and how the master plan is created considering these grant sources and their parameters. And the first grant, this matrix here, the community forest grant, is this federal grant. And it's really to establish a community forest and community benefits by acquiring and protecting forest lands. Most of that Toad Mountain property is forested and cover. And there's certain compatible uses and incompatible uses with these grant sources. And you can see on the matrix here I listed some of the compatible uses, in particular camping, hiking, hunting is a big one. Existing structures can be on the property when you acquire it. They do need to be worked into a community forest plan, elaborating how they are going to provide community benefits and work with the property. It also can be used as a working forest for sustainable timber management. So that's not something that's mutually exclusive from that grant. With both of these grants, the DNR Natural and Scenic Areas Grant and the Federal Community Forest Grant, there is a deed restriction that's filed with the property when you use the grant funding to purchase it that essentially says the property can be used for the purposes of what this grant funding was awarded. And so that's just something to be aware of. And that runs in perpetuity with the land, irregardless of who the owner is. Some things I kind of want to highlight about what would be considered incompatible by these grant sources is in the DNR, Natural and Scenic Areas Grant, for example, motorized uses is an incompatible use here. They would allow for silent sports like biking, cross-country skiing, snowshoeing, but things like ATV usage on trails on the property would not be permitted, or dirt biking, that kind of thing. Also athletic fields and courts, dog parks, anything that's going to basically impair, as you can get from the title of the grant, that anything that's going to impair or deter from the natural and scenic component of that property. I've already talked with the grant staff there about the existing cabins on the property and the pole shed. And then on the west side of the property, there's also some rustic structures there that were used for camping during the horse camp and things like that. And those things are all compatible uses because they've existed before. You're not looking to really develop beyond that. You might enhance those particular facilities or utilize them, as we'll find out from the master plan process, as part of a camping component that could be part of the property. But you're really not going to be able to put in a 60-unit RV park in this with these grant sources.
Just a quick question. When you talk about non-motorized, I would assume that would go over to the lake also, so there would be no marina with power boats. Is that accurate to say?
That is accurate to say. I mean, we'd have parking areas where you could go and park, obviously, on the property, and that to that extent.
Park boats or park?
No cars.
Okay.
Sorry. Yep. Boats and I think Toad Mountain also already has an existing water access, or Toad Lake already has an existing water access on both the west and I think the southeast side. Correct. To south side. Yep. So, yep. So that would be one of those things I think that is part of the master planning process too, is one of those things that you've already got kind of access to the lake. For motorized use, this would be probably something more for like a kayak bra or a canoe landing where you could put those types of flotation devices in.
It's a lot of stuff to throw at everyone here. It's complex, but we can go to the last slide or two if you'd like. Just to wrap up where we're at, like Nick had indicated, there's a contract for purchase with the seller. Becker County has a request for proposals. Their master plan writer consultant. We received 7. We're here before you today to go over some of those, and the one that RAC committee kind of vetted and scored and selected to bring to this board meeting. What else? We got, so the next steps after that, if we do select someone, we'd have to send a conceptual narrative to the Greater Minnesota Regional Parks and Trails Commission for regional designation, hoping for a high ranking on that. So, and that's coming up fairly soon here at the end of August. So if we don't get high ranking at that, then we would come back in the late fall and apply again. So with notes from the Greater Parks and Regional Commission of how we can fix it or make it a better asset for regional designation. So, Steve, I don't know if I'm going to
Well, just as a clarification, this is what the consultant would be doing for us. They would be submitting the proposal for the scoring by the Greater Regional, Minnesota Regional Parks and Trails Commission. So they're going to be kind of shepherding this through along with TPL.
Does having the other regional parks be a negative against us getting another regional park designation?
No, not at all. Actually, if you, showing how it fits into that context and maybe the connections between these regional locations too, that can be an asset actually in the application.
Yeah, one thing else that we wouldn't be duplicating something that's going on at another regional designated park or something like that. We want to separate them. In this case, be more motorized uses, so, or a lake access that, for the public to kayak or swim or whatever they want to do, so.
Really, the purpose of the plan is to determine, based on the grants we're seeking, to see how that fits in, how compatible it is with other recreational opportunities you have in the region, which would include other parks that have regional significance. So it's a complementary process along with our biking, the Heartland Trail, that type of thing.
Does the, we were just told, and I think Erica noted that the township passed a resolution in non-support. Will that have a negative effect on any applications when you have the township, your governing body associated, not supporting that?
Well, I guess Jim, he's still here. My understanding is when
we didn't know enough about it to really make a statement on it.
So when the town board took a motion, the way I understood it is that they were against it without a plan. Now, that's what we're going through is this planning process, so I don't know if they'd really be against it or not. But based on the data that we had, because we didn't have much data, it's kind of like the car was in front of the horse at that meeting. So.
One thing that I heard when they spoke in open forum was the need for this, and this is what this plan will determine, right? Is that correct, Steve?
That is correct. So there's a number of plans and components to this that they're going to complete. They're going to do a management plan, operational sustainability plan, natural resources sustainability plan, programming and marketing, research and user metrics. So basically what they're going to do is they're going to come through, they're going to try to define what the need is and how this park could help fulfill that need. They're going to take public input that's going to help determine, or we would take that into consideration when you're doing the planning process. Then also they're going to, they'll figure out the infrastructure costs, so you develop a site plan, what's going to cost to develop it, so they're going to go through all that process, develop the costs and a timeline to do that. They're going to do a projected income and expense, so if you have items, let's say like camping, where you could charge a fee, they'll figure out what would be the costs associated with that activity, along with potential revenue streams. So they're going to cover these different items that are going to be the park itself. As you're going through this process, and as you figure out what it's going to be, what's going to be the future operational costs and revenue streams associated with that. That's all part of that process.
And one more question, Steve. Is there any other way to determine the need without having? I mean, this is really the way that you determine need for any project, isn't it? Is having a consultant do a study?
That's pretty normal to have to do an economic study of this type of project, and also to help determine, I don't know if they go through what the regional impact would be, but that's, how else do you do it? I mean, it's kind of like in a city where you have a housing study to determine what your needs are and what type of housing you should build. Well, this is the same concept. It's just relating it to recreational activities for public infrastructure.
During the time that the clock is ticking, once you sign your purchase, once you finalize the purchase and the land goes into the trust for public land, once they acquire it, then you are acquiring interest on that and you want repayment. That's how we get that's the big concern about how long that would be. If it doesn't get high ranking the first round, then we try again. That could get up to 2 years then. Is that where we're getting up in that $300,000 total price for us?
Well, just to clarify, Commissioner Nelson, that designation is going to happen very early on in the process. So even before TPL has acquired the property, because you won't, we've got it structured where TPL will not acquire the property until we know that the funding is in place for the county and the county board approves it.
So we'd have to get the grants approved before
You'd have to know that the funding has been recommended and has been, essentially is going to be coming to the county. And so that's
From-
what's going to
from-
happen.
from
November-
all three grants?
From all three grants. That's what's going to happen in November 2025. And TPL would acquire it shortly thereafter that. So right now, it's still held in ownership.
Right. So how do we get to that? I mean, the dollar amounts that we've been told before are pretty significant for the fees from, for the interest through you. Where do those, I mean, what do you anticipate that would cost?
Well, through our internal loan, we have an 8% interest rate. So if you do, let's do the math, and right now we've negotiated with the seller the acquisition at a $2.5 million floor, but we'll pay a full appraised value for it. So part of this process is we're going to get an appraisal done on the property. It's subject to this $2.5 million floor. So if you just use that $2.5 million, 8% interest for a 10-month period, that's $200,000, the holding cost that TPL would be incurring.
200 for the year?
For the 10-month period.
Yes, but 200,000 is for the year. 8% of 2.5 is 200,000 for the year.
Yep. Well, for that 10-month holding period, that would be.
Right, but 200,000 is for the year if you do 8% on 2.5. So it'd be less than 200.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So what happens if we don't get it? If we don't get, so the clock doesn't start ticking until we get those funds?
Yes, exactly. That's how we structured it, to ensure that we know that that's there and hedge against, hedge as best possible any risk to the county in the situation.
I think for me, I've really contemplated a lot over the last week, especially. I've gotten a lot of feedback from my constituents, especially as this, Toad Mountain is in my district. And I think what I'm hearing the most is we're not getting enough public input. And while I know that public input is part of this plan, what I would like to see is public input, for us to have a public input meeting just to determine if this is where we should go. Because this is, for me, it is a unique opportunity. And I think that it has the potential to do great things for Becker County, but it's also potentially a lot of money for us to spend. And it's not a necessity. When I say a necessity, I mean, when we need the jail, we needed that. Like it was a point where we had to have it. That's where I'm struggling. Is this something that we have to have without getting the public input? I'm sure there are people that are for it and want it. I just haven't heard from them, and so therefore, it's a struggle for me to approve because I was at the town board meeting. There were a lot of opposition there, and I have received many phone calls and emails over the last week in opposition for it. So that is my stance.
And I'm with Erica. I have not found anybody who supports this. I didn't know what to think of it when I first heard about it because I had to really think it over. So I've asked a lot of people about it. I can't find any, and I've always been against government being in business that they don't need to be in. That's how I believe if somebody's gonna own that, it should be a private person. That's my belief, but I wasn't sure, so I've been asking people. I can't find anybody that thinks this is a good idea. And so I can't support it unless I had more people telling me to do it, but I have not found one person that thinks we should have purchased this property.
Chairman Wilkerson, Dave
Mr. Chair, point of order.
No.
Point of order.
No.
Because he's not part of the county, and he got to speak.
He's represented, and he was asked if he could speak, and I said, you can come up when Steve presents, that's why he's there. So, My thoughts are, kind of what Eric has mentioned too. I'd like to see probably a public input meeting prior to moving forward on a lot of this and just see what the input is. There's going to be a lot of people come forward that are in favor of it when it's open to the public. But yeah, I've received quite a few calls on it too, some of the road issues for the township, and that can be addressed like we did with Detroit Mountain in the future, if it would go forward. But right now, I'm kind of mixed feelings on it also.
Can we request those meetings don't
Point of
take place
order.
in the wintertime?
No.
Point of order.
No.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I think, especially when I heard the township was not in support of it, and maybe they need some more information, maybe they need some more time and they could support it, but I value the local township's input tremendously. So when that came front, I'm just like, we either have to take a step back or we have to say that it's not doable. I mean, because you have to have, in my opinion, you have to have the local townships supporting that, or that if the township will not support it, then it's very difficult for us to move forward on. That's my thought.
I'd probably like to take a step back and have public meetings scheduled and public input and trying to get it.
I think outlining it specifically where the county money is coming from, where, I know, in our conversation, Steve, you had mentioned that we have a large recreational budget. And I think that's what the public needs to know is where the county will pay for that money, so that they understand it better. And then we, I think, can make a better decision based on full public input, if that's what we have a meeting specifically for.
And just to clarify that, where the funds would come from, it's from the recreation funds, which is not general taxpayer money. It is funds received from sale of timber and tax forfeit properties.
Mm-hmm. That has to go
That has to
specifically
go for recreation. So those funds are specific for that. And just my estimate then, the approximately $54,000 for the,
Yep.
and then the interest would be 167,000, give or take. So you're talking about $225,000 total price for, I mean, if it goes according to plan, and it should, because once it's approved at the state, then the clock starts ticking, and that closing time would be kind of set. I mean, it's not something that would be, so that's the kind of I mean, how solid are you in that? Is that the interest would stop accruing then?
Solid is that.
I mean, that it won't go extend on and on and on.
I'm fairly solid in that because the amount of due diligence that TPL will be doing on the front end to essentially prepare the property to convey to the county, I think it will really cut out the amount of time that we would be holding on to it.
And then there's no way for us to fund that ourselves. I mean, 8% is a pretty hefty dollar amount, hefty percentage. There's not another way for us to finance that without paying that 8% internally, or Mary's usually got lots of monies for us in that 10-month period.
I'd be open to anything if you could find alternative sources to cover the holding cost.
So it would be possible to look into using our own money in that interim time rather than paying 8%.
Mm-hmm. One more question. The grant money that we would be applying for, is there additional funds for us to use for whatever it is our plan is going to, is it just going to be the $2.5 million that the mountain would be, or will there be additional grant money for us to actually complete the plan?
Not in this case. So
Okay.
getting reimbursed after the plan is essentially put into being is not a possibility. I will say though that getting these grants for the property does open the door to future funding for things like land management and improving infrastructure that's on the property. So once you kind of get your foot in the door with these grant sources, the state and feds want to see a return on that investment, and you're usually more likely to get future funding through a grant source for that.
Okay.
Eric, it'd be similar to what Wanigan Park is going through. They got the
Gotcha.
original grants to purchase, and now they're applying and gotten other grants to do some infrastructure work.
Okay.
It's an ongoing, it doesn't happen overnight, and it's a long, tedious process, but they're moving forward.
It's a long process, but I think it needs to be a slow process to make sure that it's
Yeah.
done right.
Which Wanigan Park was.
Yes,
It was
yep.
6 years, so. With that, consensus of the board, or we need a motion?
To have a meeting?
To the
Is that-
public meeting?
Yeah, I will, I mean, my opinion is it's Erica's district. I look for leadership from
Yes.
the commissioner that represents that to some degree. So if I was to vote today, with the township in, at least what was stated there in opposition, I could not move forward today. If you want to try to garner that local support, that's, I mean, I'm kind of leaving it on the table to what direction you want
I
to.
think a good input meeting from the public, and just get the outcome from that and take that in consideration.
So, excuse me, so right now, with your timelines, it's a pretty tight timeline. Does this, if you wait very long, you're going to skip a year?
But yeah, this would throw a wrench in the timelines right now currently. We essentially, if we've got the grant cycle that's just starting to ramp up. So as you saw on that one slide, you've got the one federal grant that you need to apply for by the end of January 2025. And then this, the Parks and Trails grant, which we talked about with the regional designation, that the application is due next July. But part of that is, again, getting that regional designation piece first, and then the master plan. And putting, even on a year timeline, can be daunting to put together those two components, a regional designation and a master plan. It's definitely feasible, but it'd be pushing it if you start to condense it even more than what it is. And then the DNR, Natural and Scenic Area Grant, is this spring when that one would be due.
So the purpose of the master plan is to address those concerns that you're talking about. I guess that would be the question, is do you want to have a firm that does this type of thing come in and hold those public meetings, get that information out there, and take that dialogue? And they can report back to the board as needed.
I think for me, before I would want to even spend $54,000 is really just to make sure that this is something the public wants. And once we spend the $54,000, I think at that point, it's kind of a point of no return, right? I mean, we're going to have a plan. If we're going to spend the $54,000, to not go forward with it, it seems like a public hearing for me would be to get public input about moving forward with the $54,000 for the plan.
The question is, how do you do that? Because if you have a specific meeting, you're going to load it up with some people that are for, some that might be against it. But if you wait very long on this, you've definitely got a shot past this round of funding. It's going to push it out another year.
I think, moving on, what's the wishes of the board?
I agree with the public meeting, but how do we do that? How are we going to, I mean, I know how to do a public meeting, but how are we going to hire a different consulting firm to do a public meeting? Are we going to do it internally, have a public meeting? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
What's the
well, I mean,
plan?
I think we can do it internally. I think providing a PowerPoint with what exactly we want and advertise it. We can put it out on Facebook, put it out, publish it in the newspaper that this is the public's time to
Weigh in
weigh in on this.
Suggestion, I don't know if this firm would be good with it, but if they broke that proposal down and and you had initial part to this contract that says you hired them to come in as a median, somebody to help with this process of getting public input, and then also to get it to a point where they're submitting the application to determine if it's regional significance. If that doesn't work out, or if maybe put out a point in there that says, you know, if the county decides not to go forward, we'd pay a prorated portion of this, and then if you decide to move forward, then you finish out that contract for that amount. Because no matter how you do it, it's going to cost you money, whether it's staff time or everything else that goes with it internally. And to be honest with you, I don't have a lot of extra time to be putting together these kind of projects. It would be probably better if you did bring an independent person that's used to moderating these type of activities to get you to that point that you're talking about. I don't know what your thoughts are as far as that goes.
I mean, we're not competent to have a public meeting. I would think we could. I don't know, but I would sure think that we could do that here. We should be able to do that here. That sounds. I think that we between everybody here, we can arrange a public meeting, and we've already had a public meeting today, and nobody was for it, and it was on our agenda. So can't we have a public meeting?
Sure.
Okay.
We have to move on here, so let's get a consensus or motion on what we want to do.
I mean, I would like to see a meeting. I don't know that I want to spend money to have a meeting. I mean, that I see what you're saying, Steve, that, you know, how do we move forward with having a meeting? And I think we have the PowerPoint that you guys made today. I think really using that PowerPoint, and it's more just advertising for the meeting for us just to get that public input. I mean, I don't think we need to have anything fancy, any moderator. It's really just for us to get public input.
Take public comment. And
If I might add to it, I think this, and maybe the homework is on, I hate to put this on you, but it's your area, your district. Maybe homework's a little bit falls on you also. Find out what the support is. I mean, if this was in my area, I mean, you'd go to your, restaurants, you'd go to your township, and you would try to get, if the support's there, then move forward. If it's not, I mean, I would say this is more, I mean, it's a regional, which will draw from regional areas, but, people from my area are going to go to Middle Cormant swimming rather than, they're not going to drive over to Toad Mountain. So, most of the amenities that are offered here are either going to be the people that are fairly local, or you're drawing from another base, Fargo, Moorhead, or wherever. So as far as county, I think these are good for those, you have a public swim beach here now for the people in that area who don't have access to their own lake properties. So those are the, if you want to talk, that's the area, the local area. We want to serve the local people who don't have access to lake homes, and that's who I would look for. Now, if the support's not there, then it's not there. I mean, you want to have the amenities for the locals if they would like it, and that's, if they're not interested in it, then.
Good. Just throw a motion to table it pending.
I mean, I think we table it. I don't know to what means. I don't know. I think.
Try to hold the public input here.
You're going to be the driver on it if you want it to be moved forward. So, motion to. I mean, I don't know. Do we want to indefinitely, or I think there's a time consensus for this year. It should be if it's going to be done this cycle, it needs to be done minimum in the next 2 meetings, and preferably the next one. But if not, then it's a year out, and then I don't know if the seller is willing to do that. So they'd probably pull it and maybe come back to it another time and reconsider if they haven't sold it. So
I think we should be able to have some type of public meeting here in the next month or so.
Yeah, I mean, I think we could go back to the town board with more more information about really, and we did present a little bit that we're, what we're looking for. But again, if we're going off of just what
I think the
the local
key,
support is,
the
we don't
key
have
is
it
too,
at this
though,
point.
that it's, all these grants are non-motorized. So there's no four-wheeling, there's no, I mean, obviously vehicles to get to the property, but there's no four-wheeling, ATVing, there's no marina, there's no motorboat access that we plan on adding, and there's no slips that we're looking at. I mean, I think those are some keys that the locals would want to know. We're not going to add boat traffic unless it's kayak or canoe, non-motorized. I think that would be that's what the intent of this property is. And I think I actually, when Clark called me on this, I think one of the options is for those cabins. I was even thinking, you think outside the box a little bit, a possible using it for, like for the different type of wish list or veterans, service groups that someone needs, that's went through a tough time. I mean, just different things like that. It would be a beautiful spot for that. But again, we don't know that. That would be something in the plans that would tell you what would be better or not. But again, I think we have to have the local people in the area supporting that, or it's probably a no-go.
Okay.
So.
Motion to table.
Make a motion to table.
Have a second?
I'll second.
Second.
Motion by Eric, second by Dave, table it, and we'll, pending outcome of public meeting.
Yep.
Just a point of information then, without it being a date on it, the table, it's indefinitely, and if it's never brought back, it automatically dies. So if you want it brought back, you have to bring it to get it on the
Back
agenda.
on the agenda.
And I would suggest it has to be at the next meeting or to be,
In
or
August.
the next two meetings to be
Yeah, by
considered.
the last meeting in August.
By the last meeting in August.
And Mr. Chair, if it's emergency, you could always call a special meeting, but I don't see that happening.
Okay.
And I don't know if you need, in these public hearings or meetings, that you need all 5 commissioners, if you have 2 from, obviously, Erica and
Maybe somebody from the RAC committee.
Yeah, one of us, two, both of us.
One of us, so.
okay, thanks.
With that, any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay. Anything else?
Chairman,
Meeting adjourned.
Mr. Chairman, okay, the meeting's adjourned.
Yep.
One of the things that I heard today that I'm very impressed with is how can we save money in the county? One of the things that we're totally ignoring